Hi, welcome to Switching Mindsets. This is Anuradha. Today, we're talking to Seema Sinha, the only driving coach in Delhi-NCR and a former Mrs India first runner-up for 2023 and a mom to three daughters. So, I've got that right. Yeah. So, hi Seema, welcome.
Hi, Anuradha. Thanks for having me here.
Yeah. So you were saying that you've had a very, very tiring day today. You've been 12 hours on the road, you said.
Oh, yes. I have been on the road for 12 hours straight. I've been locked up in cars the whole day. So, yes, I've been taking classes and I got back just 10 minutes ago.
Okay. So tell me about your day really. Who were you teaching? Do you want to talk about that? What's it like?
Today itself?
Today was like an average day or is it like as busy as this?
No. It was one of the busiest days and a fresh batch starts today. So there are like four clients back to back. So there were 4 classes that I took today. So it's been difficult.
And this was all in Gurgaon or all over NCR?
No, this was only in Gurgaon.
Okay, that's a relief.
So when I decide to do Delhi and Noida, then it is only Delhi and Noida. Then I can't do Gurgaon. So that's how it is.
Yeah, but I'm surprised that you even take up Delhi and Noida, while you're living in Gurgaon. Because I saw your Facebook and we spoke the other day and you said that, you even have clients in Noida, etc. How do you manage it?
So it's all about helping women, and that drive, that passion is so strong that I make that effort, and because going to Delhi and Noida for classes, eats up my entire day. It's not easy to travel for 5 hours for a 1.5 hour or a 2 hour class. But then I do it nonetheless because these women who reach out to me are in need of help and they really want it. And there is this burning desire in me to help them, to empower them, which makes me make that effort.
Yeah, it's great, like women supporting women like that. And, like I was talking to my colleague today about you that, I'd be speaking to you. And she also said that, she said, I would be any day more comfortable with a woman driving coach than a man teaching me,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
You hear that a lot?
There's a gaping hole there, yes. And I seem to have filled that hole. And I'm happy about it, yes.
Yeah, but why do you think that is? In your experience, I would imagine that even I don't drive, but I would feel more comfortable. Like the minute I know that, Seema is teaching, okay, maybe now I can learn driving. I also feel that.
I realized when I got into this, that this was a critical need in the community. When I started, I did not have, even an inkling of how it is going to be. But then these women, they came tumbling out in hordes when they heard that there is a woman coach, who can train them with driving. And there are these very interesting driving stories of all these women that I can share. And there was a huge market out there. I mean, I wouldn't like to call it a market, but a huge segment of women who were waiting for this, who were looking for it for years together. And when they finally found that, yes, there is somebody, even I was taken aback by the response because the city that I come from, Gurgaon, is a very progressive city. And I always thought, that women are so dynamic here that there would hardly be any woman who doesn't know how to drive. And I couldn't be more wrong. So, there are these women working in the higher echelons of the corporate world, achievers in their own right, but they have their own story of not being able to drive, of not being behind the wheel. So, yes, this, I think I just came as a very welcome thing to the women community here. And obviously it gives me immense joy that, I was able to fill that gaping hole.
Yeah, tell me some of these stories. Like what I know, some of the other stories. Like we spoke to, Supriya Devarkonda as well, and she's has a hearing impairment that she deals with. So she told me that despite her hearing impairment, she has trouble, figuring out which side the noise is coming from. Yeah. So so you told her just pay attention to the vibration. And and she's quite confident after you taught her. So, other than that, we'll come to that as well. But what about regular women, like you're saying, who you would expect that they can drive, like you're saying, these corporate women and, the high achievers, etc.
Yeah.
So what are their stories? What stopped them?
Yeah, so these women, they come from various backgrounds. They are achievers, they are homemakers, they are simple women also. So the reason, the reason that is common, that runs through most of these women, was that they were in the grip of massive anxiety and fear when it came to taking over the wheel. Why? Because one of the reasons was that they've had some past trauma, okay, associated with driving. Either they met with an accident, or they lost a dear one, you know, in an accident, or they were taught by somebody who ended up denting their psyche more rather than instilling them with confidence. And they were told by usually the men folk who were the closest to them that this is not something which is meant for them, and they will not be able to do it. It is not in them. So these are the women who were convinced and who believed that driving is not for them. However, they felt the need, because life becomes very, very difficult if you do not know how to drive. It does not matter how many Ubers you can take or how many drivers you can hire. It's not about that. It's about the sheer independence, the sheer freedom that a woman feels when she is not dependent on anybody or doesn't have to rely on any kind of public transport. So there are these moments in every woman's life where she just wants to pick up the keys and, go about doing her daily work. And it may sound very simple, but no, it isn't. It is very critical. And these things were gnawing at these women at various levels, So this is what, so trauma is one thing. Second is, of course, the disabilities, like we just spoke about, Supriya. So we don't have inclusive coaches. We don't have coaches who can cater to such needs, like in the case of Supriya. So that was one. The third could be, it could be as simple as children making fun of their own mothers and, repeatedly telling them that, why can't you drive? There are so many mothers, my friend's mother drives to school and you don't drive us, and wherever we want to go. It's very weird that we have a mother who doesn't drive. And in today's day and time, maybe 2 decades earlier, it wouldn't have sounded so weird because I have a mother who doesn't drive. Maybe you also have one who doesn't drive. But today, not to have a mother who drives doesn't go down very well. So there were women also who were made fun of, who were actually ridiculed for their inability to drive, and constantly asking for support from their spouses. And I'm talking about perfectly happy marriages here. But yes, it was causing, it had an adverse effect in their marriage also because of this reason. Because the husband would be tired, he would come back home, and then, the wife saying that I want to go here, or maybe I have some work to do. And, the attitude, or maybe just because the husband is very tired, and all these little things, they kill you somewhere. It's not easy to deal with such things. So these are the women who come to me, and gain that skill. And I also give them a guarantee. Yes, I work on a model where I say that this is 100% guarantee model. If not, I will give back your money. And I haven't given anybody's money back.
Fantastic. Really. Yeah. So what have they said? I see your testimonials and all that, and those videos that you do. And I saw you, one was in really high heels, and I'm like, I asked you, can you actually drive in those?
Yes. Yes, I can drive in heels, be it 5 inches, 6 inches, 4 inches, whatever. I can be wearing any kind of garment and I am comfortable driving, be it a heavy lehenga or a sari, which people avoid and which most women avoid. So I train women to drive in heels, those who are willing to, because when it comes to such things, it hardly matters what kind of footwear you're wearing or what kind of clothes you're wearing. These are all unnecessary blocks that a woman has in her mind, and they can get rid of it. And why not? Why get into the inconvenience of carrying a separate set of slippers, when you're going to a party and you want to wear heels? But then these little inconveniences, they are not needed. So I train them. This is, of course, working on the mind first before I can tell them, that because it's a mental block more than it's nothing else but a mental block. So I work on that.
Yeah, I think you're like driving coach and life coach rolled into one, probably.
I turned out to be one because I did not know, honestly, Anuradha, what I was getting into. These women first needed to be worked at a psychological level. The technicalities came much later. And I realized the technicalities is one thing, I can train them, yes, but it's more of the attitude and the confidence that they needed more. other than, the fear of the traffic and the fear of the roads and this feeling that every other truck is out to kill them, or they would just freak out at the way people drive on Indian roads and all these kinds of things. So basically, they felt that everybody was coming at them and they would surely either kill themselves or end up killing someone else.
Yeah,
The greatest.
that sounds exactly like me. Those are the things that go through my mind, and I'm like, I'll get killed. It's okay. I don't want to kill somebody and land up in jail.
Yeah,
how many times I've
the oft-repeated
myself.
sentence from my clients. Yes. No, but why do you want to die yourself? I mean,
I'm just
it's
saying,
okay. You don't want to kill anyone else, but why do it to yourself too? So, yes. So how those fears are baseless and unfounded is what I teach them and train them about. Yeah.
Yeah. And so how is it afterwards? Like once they've, done this with you, what do they tell you?
Oh, the
What
joy
change do you
and the
see, rather?
satisfaction. Oh, the joy and the satisfaction starts seeping in from the first day itself, the very first session that I have with them, because it's the methodology, the way I teach, that in itself is a confidence building measure more than anything else. So these women, they are not clear about the basics at all. So I start from a scratch, like something as basic as familiarizing them with the car. So there the confidence starts building in that, oh, okay, this is not so difficult, or this is not what I thought it was. Oh, fine. Or there are women who on the first day itself, at the end of the class, they say, my God, if somebody had told me this earlier, I wouldn't have taken so long. The thing is that we were never told these basics, and now that we have them in place, the first sentence that they say, and this has been without an exception, after the first session, they say, "Okay, now I am so excited about this, and I'm sure that what you promise is now starts looking like a." It's already looks like a reality, because before coming to you, we felt it was more of a motivational talk or somebody trying to just say, no, you can do it, or these cliched sentences, no, you have it in you, you can do it. But then they start believing it. Yes, when I was saying it, I meant it. And then I go on to prove it on a daily basis. Of course, it's not a magic wand that I have. It's a gradual process, but the improvement is every single day. And I'm not talking about technicalities here, because I'm talking about the confidence building. That starts happening, then the technicalities come easy. So all those fears are taken care of. And there is no particular strategy that I follow. It's just the way I speak to them, the way I talk to them while I'm teaching them, and tell them how easy it is. All those things that looked like, their greatest fear, that no, this is very difficult. Like in the case of a manual transmission cars, there's a huge fear of gears. We don't know what to do. We have tried to learn, but nobody really taught us. So there is a lot of clarity in the way I teach. So when that starts seeping in, that is when they are like, okay, and nobody has ever told me that, no, I want to give up now and I don't want to do it.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that, the joy, because that's what even I felt when I see your testimonials.
Yeah. Oh, the joy and satisfaction, that is the greatest reward that I get as a trainer. The victory dance that I do in the
and
end.
The pink sneakers. The last one had pink sneakers, where somebody asked you where you got it from. Right?
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. So, yes, she asked me about it, and I told her where I got them from.
Yeah. So I like that, it's spunky, it's fun, everybody's having a good time.
Yeah, it adds a thing, because see, driving lessons can also be very monotonous. There is nothing glamorous about this job at all. It is what I have tried to change and give a different face to this profession. Firstly, we don't have women doing this. Okay, women do not venture into this easily. That is the reason. And the second is to make it as joyful as possible, right? So though there is no, but by the end of it, why I do this victory dance? Because I feel that at the end of every achievement, however small or big, if you cap it with some kind of celebration, it could be food, it could be a dance, it could be a song, it could be anything, that gives you a lot of assurance, and you really feel good about what you have achieved. So that's the whole idea behind it. So my clients, and the most beautiful part of it is that I never have to ask my clients to do it. I just tell them that this is how I like to end my sessions. And are you up for it? He said, of course we are. Now that we have driven on the highway, we usually do it on the last day. You cannot imagine that this was one thing that we had never imagined in our wildest dreams, that we will be driving on the highway at 60, 70, 80, whatever the learning curve of the client has been. But it is never below 60 that they drive, and it's a huge deal for them. So that dance and that joy that comes out on its own.
Yeah.
So there's no coercion, there is no discussion, nothing. And my clients go to, when they're genuinely happy and that joy and satisfaction, they tell me that, I am a person who has 2 left feet, but I am going to do this. And you can't imagine the happiness it brings to me.
Yeah, and it's very, very obvious to whoever's looking at it. So tell me, a lot of what you're saying is also sounding like you do a lot of parenting and hand-holding when you're...
Yes, I do, yeah.
Yeah.
And most of my clients are younger than me. There are only a few who are older than me, but the majority of them are younger. So yes, I do end up mothering them and also giving them a lot of gyan, which is surprisingly very welcome. And I just enjoy my conversations with them. And of course, though age has nothing to do with maturity and wisdom, but of course, I have seen more years than them and maybe seen life a bit more. I can bring a little more to the table, and they are very accepting. And yes, it is received well. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, tell me, it's I'm just curious because, you spend a lot of time as a stay-at-home mom. And
Yeah.
I mean, you had a career before getting married, and then, you had 3 daughters, and then you were at home, and then you resumed a career, and a very unconventional one. And but tell me, do you think the Seema before you had your kids would be this patient? Is there something that has helped you?
Not really. I was a very wayward youth, let me tell you that. I was a rebel without a cause till 23 years, for the first 23 years of my life. And yes, I was always this free-spirited woman. But then marriage came, and marriage brought with it a lot of responsibilities, not a 360-degree turn, but a 3,600-degree turn in my life. And then, of course, came the kids, not one, but one after the other. And I, like you said, yes, I am a mother of 3 kids. So I did have a budding career. I had just entered into the corporate world and I was doing very well for myself. That is the late 90s. But then when my first child happened, I willingly gave up everything. And it was a tough decision. But then it was easy too, because at that point in life, nothing gave me greater joy than being with my firstborn. And it was like being hit by a road roller and a gamut of emotions that every mother goes through when they have their first child or second, or whenever they have a child, that is. So I was very happy doing that. And little did I know that there were 2 more coming. So I didn't do anything. Where did they come from? Anyway, so... So yes, so before I could think of getting back to work, there was the second one on the way, and then they kind of just kept happening. And before I knew, it was already 2 decades that I was just raising my kids, and that's the only thing I did in those 2 decades. I haven't brought up my daughters; I have worshipped them. So
sweet. How old are they now?
So the eldest is going to be 23. The second one is going to be 21 in a few days. And the third one is 15 years old.
Okay. So you can devote some time to yourself now.
Yes, that occurred to me some 5 years ago. So 5 years ago, I was in a position when all 3 of them were independent, and I had raised them as such to be very strong, independent individuals. And that is probably what helped me to venture out of the house when I wanted to. So I was like going through my own, all of us women, or I don't know about men, but women definitely go through a very transformational change when they hit 40, 45, 44. So that is the time when they start questioning themselves that, is it the only thing that you want to do, or is it something? Because those 2 decades are just spent with the children. They are young, they are small, your life revolves around them, and you are not thinking about yourself. And I think every mother does that. You cannot treat yourself. I firmly believe this, as an individual, or think only about yourself. You have to keep yourself aside. Okay. And I appreciate women who can balance work and home together. But probably I was not of that metal, and I chose to do.
I'm sure even the women who do that, their priority remains the children, Yeah.
Yes, it does. Yeah, that goes out for all the mothers. Yeah. So, but then when my children grew up and they were on their own and they were doing very, very well academically, and they were turning out to be very fine human beings, there was these questions, these existential questions that started coming to me. And I had always been a very ambitious woman. I was like fiercely independent, in the sense that I wanted to be financially independent. I wanted to be emotionally independent. None of that had happened in the 2 decades that I spent as a mother, as a homemaker. So all of these things started coming back to me. And that's when I thought that maybe I should get back to work. Maybe not for money, but just to feel more valuable. Nobody made me feel worthless per se, but then I started feeling that myself. And I decided decided to get back into the corporate world to begin with. Now, the corporate world had always been my dream as a young girl. So all those things that I had missed in these 20 years, they started coming back. And, they started coming back like a storm that shook my core before I knew it. And one of the things was, of course, getting back to the corporate world. The other was that I loved playing sports, which I had put back and which I had probably never really worked on. So there were many things that I wanted to do, but I couldn't. So starting with, so I thought that I'll start with getting back into the corporate world. I tried that, but then most of the corporates refused to hire me because they freeze the hiring at 35 years of age, and I was already 45. So there weren't many.
Yeah.
Yes. So there weren't many corporates who were willing to.
What kind of roles were you looking for at that point?
I was not looking for anything at all. I was in a state of mind where I just wanted to try my hand at whatever was offered to me, because whatever skill I had, that was like 22, 23 years old, and nobody was even asking about it. Nobody even bothered what I did 2 decades ago or where I worked.
What had you studied at that time?
So I am a postgraduate in economics. I have done my master's in economics, but I was working as an HR professional with the corporates in the late 90s. I also worked with a law firm that dealt with intellectual property rights. I worked with them too. And then I worked with a management institute also as an advisor. So varied, really. I never stuck to one role. And the role that I could see myself rising in was the HR role. But then I gave up just at that time. So
you were up for anything, but even that was not forthcoming. Yeah.
Yes, but I really didn't know how and when, and there weren't many opportunities either. So it was only Google that allowed, where age was not a bar. So of course it was a third-party recruitment, right. But that was my first. I spoke to a consultant, and he said, "No, age is not a thing, and you can come for the interview."
Oh, nice! And that's so encouraging.
Yes, very, very encouraging. Yes, and it turned out to be really beautiful because there were 60 people who had applied. There were 60 who were interviewed, and only 3 were shortlisted, and I was one of them, along with a 24-year-old and a 28-year-old. So that, of course, gave me a high. And it was a huge morale booster. And I joined the organization. I worked there for a bit. But then, again, the corporate world had changed. It was not what, from where I had left. It wasn't like, just pick up from where you had left. No, the world had changed. The technology had changed. Everything was like, everything looked like it was so alien to me. And I felt like a dinosaur walking in the office because even the presidents and the vice presidents were younger to me. So not that it was an issue, but it wasn't easy. So either they were young.
I guess you need that space to catch up, I suppose.
Yes, yes. And so there were these 2 extremes. There were this younger lot, or there were people who were in their, late 30s. So everybody was younger to me, barring maybe 1 or 2, and I had nothing to do with them. So that was kind of, it was strange. It wasn't easy. So, but then it came, my decision clashed with my daughters writing their boards the same years. So I had been a mother who had micromanaged my daughters, and I was very particular about their academics and everything. And I decided to leave the house when they were writing the most crucial exam of their life. So one was in 12th and one was in class 10. Now, my children were very, very supportive, and they were very happy that the mother is finally leaving home and going to work, very proud of me, and also very relieved that, she's not going to be around that much, how a 16-year-old or an 18-year-old would want. So, but then it kind of boomeranged on me because I had not created a support system when I ventured out. So I was kind of, and everything started happening at the cost of my children. Something that I had, I had left everything for them. And ultimately, when I did decide to, do something for myself, it again, it was a huge question again facing me, that should I or shouldn't I? That made me quit after 6 months because there was a lot to balance. And, I had stayed home for 20 years. So everything kind of just revolved around me, and everything just came crumbling down like a house of cards. And it was physically very telling. It was mentally very telling for me to first go through the rigor in the office, trying to catch up with all the new things, and then coming back home, and then it was happening at a huge cost, and the biggest cost being my children. So I decided to give up, but then the exams got over, everything got back to normal, and I was again the same person questioning myself. I mean, why did I leave, or should I just be at it? I took a break of a month or so, and then again tried getting back. Then again there weren't many who were willing to take me because of my age primarily, nothing else. But then I didn't, again, like you have organizations like Amazon who do not have an age criteria. So I managed to crack that, worked there for a bit. But then again, now this time it was more a lack of joy and contentment than anything else. So I had been able to manage things at home, put things in place. My youngest was still very young. And my older two daughters had this privilege of having me around till they turned 18. But with my younger, she was only 12 and 13. And that's when I decided to,
You feel that guilt. There's a lot of guilt then, right?
I think every mother goes through that. But then I was also standing at a point when in a few years I would have turned 50. And I was questioning myself, if not now, then I don't know when. Yeah. So I knew I was an experienced mom. I was a seasoned mom by then, having raised two children already. So I had to be a little tough on myself, and I had to take a tough call, and thinking that no, I will manage this. Fine, I'm leaving her at 12 years of age, but then
thankfully there were no impending board exams. So
there were no impending board exams, and I had two new mothers for my third child, and my older two daughters. You know how girls can be in the house. So I had that advantage also, and they adore their sister. She's like a live doll for them. So those things were also they had started taking care of a lot of things, which also gave me the freedom to go ahead and do what I wanted to. So yes, but then, like I said, the corporate world and everything was in place, and I started working. But then I realized that I had gone through a huge transformation myself in all these 20 years. Whatever I was doing only for myself in the corporate world. I wasn't, helping anyone or giving it back. I didn't even know that I wanted to. But then when I started, I realized that I had changed as a person. And why am I stuck up with something which is not giving me joy of any kind? I mean, fine, going out and that was okay, but I would come back home with a void. And I tried to analyze, and I tried to introspect, and I realized that all these years I had also been helping a lot of women, a lot of distressed women in my own way, not as a professional, but I had counseled a lot of women, helping them out of their whatever distress they were going through. And somehow that just came back very strongly to me, that why am I not able, I just want to help somebody, or maybe spread some cheer or joy, or, what and how wasn't clear to me at all. I was a completely lost soul. And that made me quit the subsequent jobs. I did Amazon. I did work with a couple of other organizations, but then I just decided I said, no, I think I'm again going back into that spiral. And being on the other side of 40, if I'm still doing it, it's not correct. So maybe I'll just wait and watch, think this over, and then maybe start all over again. So I gave it.
Yeah. I guess you'd already made the decision that you are going to do something. So it was not.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's so interesting what you're saying that, when you wanted to get back to the workforce, you went back to the person you used to be, who used to be so ambitious.
Correct.
So you were literally like, fulfilling that person's ambitions, but you're not that person anymore. You don't have
anymore. Yeah.
That's not driving you anymore. It's so interesting.
Yeah, that was a revelation.
Yeah. So tell me, what next?
That led me to what I am today, the driving coach that I am. Now that also, I think when you really want something, that desire is strong enough, I think the whole universe kind of works with you. I never believed in it, but then I saw it happening, and it happened. I'm a part of Gurgaon Moms on Facebook, and it's a very strong support group, a women support group. And I came across, there was this woman who had put up a query, and she was looking for employment opportunities. She was going through financial distress and a bad time in her marriage, and she wanted to, just ask women if they could be of any help. And that is where, there were like maybe hundreds of women who had offered her, various opportunities. But there was one that caught my eye. Obviously, I didn't read all the 100 messages. There was one that talked about driving. So I was like, that word, I didn't even read the entire comment, I said, who is this woman who is doing, a driving related thing? Since when have women gotten into mobility business, and what are they doing there? Now, this coincided with, like, I have been a very, very passionate driver in the last 22 years. And why it struck a word? Because why that word caught my attention. There's a background to it. Why did that particular? Because there were so many other women who did not respond to it, right? But why did it catch my attention? Because driving for me had been a panacea to all my problems. In a sense that whenever I was very upset and things got out of control, it happens to all of us, it happens to the best of us, I would just pick up the keys and just go for some aimless driving and directionless driving with no agenda, nothing. And that would give me so much happiness and so much independence, just getting out from the situation. I would just put on that loud music. So I'm very jungly when it comes to that. I always listen to music at a very high volume. So it's like a chalti firti pan ki dukaan, my gadi, this thing. But then I just roll up my windows. And that's what I had been doing for years together. I also like to gloat a lot about it and actually brag about my driving skills to a lot of friends and family. But then everybody would give me a very puzzling look, like, so what? What can you do about it? I said, no, I'm just happy sharing that, I am way more skilled than men when it comes to maneuvering traffic. I mean, at the cost of sounding pompous or something. I said, no, but I'm very proud of it. I don't even see men driving as well as I do. But then there were no takers. So I was like, okay. I was just happy doing my bit. And so when I read this comment, I said, let me just find out. I just randomly picked up the phone and I spoke to Vandana Suri was her name. And I spoke to her. I didn't even have a number. I reached out to her on Messenger. And I started talking to her about it and just wanted to know what this is all about. And then she started telling me how it is enabling women drivers and the entire thing about Taxi. So she is the founder of Taxi in Bangalore, and she came up with this initiative. Now, and she was looking for partners in this part of the country.
Yeah, I saw her website. Very interesting. They have there's somebody called Super Nani. I saw there's a retired school principal in Bangalore. So,
yes. It's quite rage in Bangalore. And they have, or I can say even we have now, because I'm their partner here. So that we have won the award from the World Bank. We did win in 2019, and then the UNDP award this year. I was there for the award ceremony. And then, of course, a flood of awards that I also got as a coach. I also received as
fantastic.
a coach.
What were these awards?
So they were all... basically there was this award for superwomen achievers and women to look out for. So there were these various media houses reaching out to me. And then Business Times, I actually trained a client who was working with India Today. And I was clueless about it. I just went, and her life was transformed post my training her. She lived in Noida. And then that's when she decided to, and she said, my God, this is a story that needs to be covered. And one, because it is unique, and second, because you have changed my life. And how? You cannot imagine what I was going through because I was not able to drive. She's also single. She's a single parent. And life isn't easy for her at all. But, once she acquired that skill and she decided to do the story for me. And then there was a barrage of media houses who did cover me, who did feature me in their magazines. And the UNDP award I mentioned, there was the Adalekha award. So various organizations, it's very difficult to recall now, but yes, a host of them, and a lot of podcasts.
That's fantastic what you're saying. It gives somebody that independence to just get up and go. Like for you, it was like you're saying that sense of freedom, because the entire day, you're thinking of everyone else, the family, the kids, what everybody needs. But when you take your car and you just take off, it's just about you.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Me and my music. Yep. And that
I'd love to know what's your playlist like.
It's primarily Kishore Kumar. So there's no genre particularly. I have grown up listening to his songs and I can never shake him off. Never. So a huge fan there, but I'm also a huge fan of all these new age songs also, because
Govinda numbers.
Oh, I love Govinda. Govinda has been, Govinda is therapy. So watching Govinda movies and watching him dance is akin to therapy. And I have, whenever I've had these difficult times, I just put on one of those Govinda movies, the classics, and it's very helpful. And the Joy Weaver and everything. Oh my God, that man is phenomenal.
Yeah, and the music, at that time we kind of looked down upon it, but now it's so good.
No, yes.
So good.
Yes. Yeah, it was considered to be tacky and cheap, and his dressing style and everything. But no, there was a method to his madness always, to whatever he did. And to me, he is like quite an icon. And
now
too good at what he does.
Can't get enough of that music anymore. Really, I'm like playing it on
not the music per se, but his movies, and just to see him, just to watch him dance on screen.
Absolutely. Even now when I see him, if he comes on these shows, etc., it's so effortless, and it's a joy, that really.
Yep.
Anyway, so we digress.
I'm a huge Bollywood person anyways. I mean, I have so I have Bollywood running in my veins. So I am one of those who would worship and have them on my walls. I have been that kind of a girl and a woman too. Like I would now hide their posters, but I still have them.
Yeah. So what you said, that you contacted Taxi. So I just want to know when that Eureka moment happened and you said, oh, I can do this. I actually have a skill, which, you didn't realize you had that skill.
No, I did not. But then, certain realizations came post my conversation with her. And 10 minutes into the conversation, and I knew that I am taking this up. And we just finalized everything, and I landed up in Bangalore with her for a meeting and for the training and everything. The whole idea, of course, appealed to me, but there was a lot more to it. Now, there were two things that, of course, my passion for driving, but then you may be passionate about something, you may be an expert at something, but you can be a good teacher of the same thing. No, there's no connection. So in Hindi, like I always say, in do baaton ka aapas mein koi sambandh nahi hai. In the sense that if you're good at something, you'll be able to impart that to someone else. No, it's a different ballgame altogether. Now, herein comes two interesting things. The first was that I am very fearless. By disposition, I am very fearless. I usually don't get scared. So that was one thing which made me feel that I can go in for this. Because I'll come to this later, why I need to be fearless in the job that I do, because I teach without controls. Okay, so the normal driving schools have that dual control system. They have the clutch and the brake with them. I have none. Okay, so I will come to that later. So the fearless part and the passion for driving. Now, the teaching, I did not know. Now, again, it was a revelation. So when I was trained, this was a 2-week training that I underwent there in Bangalore with Vandana. And these are the two things that you require to become a trainer. a driving coach. Fearlessness and, of course, the expertise. Now, the third one is that I did not know that I was blessed with the genes that I did not realize all these years. My father has been a lecturer, and a renowned one. I come from Lucknow, so he was nominated for the Man of the Year, and he's the best in his teaching skills, and he is really respected and known in the city for his teaching skills and for the teacher that he is, or he has been. Now he's retired, of course. I had that gene in me and I did not know. Of course, when I was very heavily invested in my daughters, like I said, and I used to teach them myself, academics that I'm talking about. And after every lesson, I found myself to be really good at it. And I was like, if I explain a concept to anybody, be it a child or be it anyone, if I have clarity, then I'm able to, present myself with the same clarity and explain myself with the same clarity. But then all these things were coming to me in bits and pieces. It wasn't a realization per se, just joy and happiness that my daughter was able to understand the concept and I was able to. But then it was that gene actually that was working. So when I took this up and I underwent this training, so 3 days, just 3 days into the training, and I knew that I already know all this and I will be able to do it. And I started improvising there and then. So I would start, even telling the trainer that, no, I mean, this can be done like this can be taught like this, or this is how you speak, or maybe because I ended up training my trainer in soft skills. I said, no, we need to bring this also. So that's how it started. And that's how I got into it. And I realized that, yes, I have it in me. And let's see who all need me now. That was one thing I didn't know at all.
Yeah, but I'm sorry if I'm just making all these connections,
No, please do.
Yeah,
this is such a random conversation. We have to, yes.
Yeah, because it's like your whole life when you were a stay-at-home mom was in preparation. You learned patience, you learned how to teach, you learned how to drive, and once you just said, okay, fine, let the right thing come to me, it came to you.
Oh yes,
already ready
and the
to
dance
just,
bit. And the dance bit
and
also.
the dance.
So,
Yeah.
as a stay-at-home mother, I did complete my graduation in Kathak along with my daughters. That was one thing I did.
Okay.
Yes, because I was constantly ferrying them from one class to another, and I would just sit there for an hour. And Kathak just was again very random, but then I was very fond of dancing always, and I just got into it. And I said, why should I waste my time sitting here for an hour? Though I needed that rest, and how. But then I have this, I don't know, in Hindi you call it a kida, that no, I have to be doing something, even if my physical limits have been stretched beyond, any comprehension. I would still find myself and being very happy about it, and then being very tired also and complaining. But that's how I ended up completing my graduation in Kathak. It was a very, very difficult journey. So it takes about 6 years to complete your graduation in Kathak. And this was again despite all odds. So again, the victory dance coming too. So I'm fond of dancing. I am a good teacher. That's what I feel. I'm very passionate about driving, and I kind of just put all these things together in what I'm doing right now. So you can understand how happy I am about what I'm doing.
I know, I'm amazed, really, that how it all, just came together. But tell me, you obviously, you've also done your graduation in Kathak. You also entered the Mrs India Diva first runner-up. Tell me about that too. So, there were a bunch of things you could have done, right? Like you said earlier on, that this is not a glamorous job.
Not at all.
Yeah.
And I have been a huge fan of glamour too.
Yeah, so exactly. Tell me, how did you wrap your head around it?
So there's a lot of glamour that I've brought to driving also, by the way. But
like we discussed your high heels and pink sneakers and everything and the reels.
Like I said, I'm that starry-eyed girl from Bollywood. I don't think I've ever grown out of it. Even now at this age, I really don't think. Yeah. So I like fashion. I like glamour. And I had always been a fan of it. And which probably coming to Mrs. India, though it wasn't just the glamour or the fashion part of it that led me into it, because we all know that pageants are not about just glamour and beauty. And this again, so I was on a roller coaster ride. So I was very happy to have found something that I really wanted to do as a driving coach. And now, I was like, what next? And I wasn't even there, but I knew that I had found my calling and that thrill, that excitement. And I was looking for, what else there is that I wanted to do, and I haven't. So I was just scrolling through Facebook very randomly, and I came through this Mrs. India thing, the advertising about it. And so there were a lot of friends who, all these years had been telling me that, you have it all in you, and why don't you try one of these pageants, don't tell anyone about it, but at least be a part of it. And I would just laugh it off. And how I would just brush that thought aside. I said, I mean, do you know what you're talking about? So, but then I don't know, it must have stayed somewhere in the subconscious, I believe. And I said, fine, let me just give it a try. And because I know that my sister has been a part of Miss India pageant many years ago, that was 15 years ago. And I know these pageants are not about just how you dress or how you look. There is a lot more depth that goes into it. There's a lot, it is very profound in the sense that it really transforms you as a person. So I was privy to all of that. And I thought, let me just give it a try. And I just applied randomly, thinking that I will goof up like I usually do. And I thought this is going to be one of my new goof ups. So let me see. And then I just applied for it. I was called.
Since you're fearless about goof ups, it's okay.
Yes. And that has become a part and parcel of my being. I'm sick and tired. I've stopped working on my goof ups. So yes, and I often end up putting my foot in my mouth also. So I'm like, I have try as might, I
it's
may
all
try.
good. Yeah.
Yes. So that's just me, I guess. But then I always make it up, and I always come out pretty fine in the end after all the goof ups. So I said, okay. And then this interview happened, and it turned out to be such fine people. And I had not done any homework. I had not found out anything about them, nothing at all. And that is my want. That is how I am. I usually do not do much homework. So I am very impulsive that way. So you'll be surprised to know that I haven't Googled anything all my life. So I didn't. And once more, it was just like taking a plunge. And as luck would have it, I came across these set of very, very fine people. And more than being a part of the pageant, I was very happy to meet these people, because I am a very people's person. The moment I meet somebody from whom I can learn or who I am in awe of, I'm like the happiest person on the planet. And I just went ahead with it. And they shortlisted me, and it took about a day or more than 24 hours for them to get back to me. And I was waiting like with bated breath. And I knew that I had again goofed up, and I didn't think that I will make it. But then I made it. And if you were to ask me the reasons, like I said, they were very random. It was just that trying everything that I can. And oh my God, when I entered into this, it is such an amazing journey. So much of learning, immense learning there was. And it was the experience of a lifetime.
What would you say is your biggest learning here?
So again,
if you can think of something.
So whatever I choose to do keeps bringing me in touch with a lot of women, and women from diverse backgrounds. All women have stories. Okay. So if you were to ask me what's the biggest learning, not one, but many, because every participant that I met there, and you know that all women have stories, had a very, very interesting, very painful stories to tell. Okay. So I picked up little bits from every woman that I met there. Lessons in resilience, lessons in facing challenges no matter what, working on things that, that seemed like, life ending actually, but then coming out victorious, fighting it. So not one lesson as such, but many. And if I were to use the word, it's resilience and never say never. And since I have a never say never attitude, and when I went out there, so it resonates. And that has been my biggest learning in life. Not obviously, I'm a sum total of so many people that I've met, but then never say never being the underlining lesson in life.
Get up and keep trying. But I like the way you said that, you're a spontaneous person, and that seems to have worked for you, because when you were doing so much of thinking, it didn't work, on the corporate route that you tried to get back to.
Yes.
So,
and I end up piling so much work on myself, because the Mrs. India thing was not easy at all. There was so much work, that there was so much areas that I needed to work upon. So it was, a hard work of 3 months. And then, of course, a 5-day event there.
What was it called, the pageant?
This was called the Diva pageants.
Okay.
Yeah. And they have these annual Mrs. India contests. So Mrs. India is not very old in India. I think it's just only 25 years old, unlike Miss India.
Yeah, of course.
Miss India goes way back, Zina Taman days probably. So, but Mrs. India is not, I think it's barely 25 years old.
Not that old
at all. Yeah. But it's such women, I mean, they are doing such good work, giving platforms to women like us who would want to, explore themselves and, helping them realize their potential and, and in various capacities. It's not just one thing. And obviously women who need a platform to maybe voice their concerns, or if you win, then of course you get a platform to talk about the cause that you are working for, and so many things that go with it. So kudos to people who are organizing this. Yes,
of course, and just to have the spotlight on you for a change, your story as well.
Yeah, totally.
Constantly thinking of somebody else, and you said, for so many years you were not working, and then you feel like you need external validation. So I think this is the biggest, the best way to get it.
Oh yes. And people lie when they say they don't need validation. Everybody needs it to an extent. Of course, you blow it out of proportion, you make it into a disease, that's a different thing. But everybody needs validation and appreciation, regardless.
Of course, yeah, everybody does. You need that pat on the back. Everybody needs that.
Yes, you do, of course.
Yeah. So tell me about your driving. When did you learn driving? At what age?
I was 28 and I'm self-taught.
Really?
I never went to a driving school. No, never. So I learned myself, and I used to actually, I kept it as a secret because I did not go to a formal driving school. We had this car at home, and I would wait for my husband to leave, and I would just take the car out, and it was all trial and error. I knew nothing about driving, but then I figured it out myself. And I did not even have a license. So wherever we stayed in Delhi for 8 years, so I would just do the entry and the exit of my the society where I lived. And that's how I learned. And then just one day I just picked up the car and drove from Delhi to Gurgaon in peak office hours with my 2 toddlers in the car. Wow. So like I said, I'm fearless. Yes, they were so one was a year old and the other was 1.5 years old, maybe. All under 3, both my children. Yeah, so that was that. So I, and I'm self-taught in most of the things in life.
Yeah, so I guess self-taught gives you that advantage because, you don't have, you haven't learned it in the conventional way, so you don't teach it like that.
Yes, right? Yes. And I have been a very non-conforming individual, I think, all my life. If I were to look back, I didn't know that all my life. But yes, these 4 or 5 years have been quite a revelation. So non-conforming is the word that how I like to describe myself. Though it's not like frivolous or it's not something that doesn't make sense. It's in a very logical and a very well thought out way. It's like not being a non-conformist just for the sake of it. And, rebelling against anything that comes across. No, it's not like that.
Yeah, I think it's also to do with age, because when you're younger, you're very clear about the kind of person you are, everything's black and white. But as you grow, I guess it's self-discovery. So,
yes. And you realize how everything is gray. There is nothing black and white. Nothing at all.
Don't even know yourself, really. So, so I'm glad you're on this journey. It's wonderful. Yeah. So, so tell me, how do you teach? You said that, somebody who said that this young girl that you taught, she learned on the manual gears. So what do you prefer? Any specific unique things that you bring to the table, which you're aware of, that you try, or some things you avoid?
Yeah. So not really. It is firstly, since I do not have the controls and the client is absolutely raw and it is a matter of life and death on the roads. Yeah. But it begins with me talking to them about it and familiarizing with the car. So a part of it is already done on the first day. So the first thing that I teach them, now I cannot let out my trade secrets, but I will just try and tell you how.
Absolutely.
Yes. So it's the method of teaching, which is very unique. And I do not have the controls, but then I have just one control, which is the handbrake. So basically telling the client about how the various things work in the car, be it the accelerator, the brake, the clutch. So they are taught all this one by one. And I move on only once they have fully understood and they have mastered, that I move on to the next chapter. So it is a very, and it is structured in a way that you cover only this bit in one day. So when they get a hang of it and they are able to do it, do I move on to the next? Now, if I were to go into the details of it, then it is talking about the various technicalities that go into it. This is how the clutch works. This is how the foot movement goes. And this is how the coordination between the steering and your footwork, what that coordination, how that is set, how much time it should take, how you should be thinking, and how you cut your body into two parts and think that if this is moving faster, you're doing nothing, pretty much like dance. So there's a lot of coordination between the upper part and the lower part of your body that goes hand in hand. And nobody ever seemed to told. And all this is this thing that I have brought to the table. And I learn with every client. So yes, and it is completely safe. The one question that I'm asked from the concerned husbands or the families is that, you don't have anything. How do you ensure safety? And I am like, just come to me, spend with me 2 days if you want to, and see how I teach and how it is one step at a time. So all that possibility of collision or of going wrong is arrested in the first 3 days. However, there's still a possibility, because in panic, you don't know. There may be a reaction, instead of pressing on the brake, the learner may press on the accelerator, and there it goes. But then my repeated, I'm constantly talking for those 1.5 2 hour sessions. So I'm like kind of reiterating and reinforcing it into their head, and it doesn't happen. And it's a sure shot thing. I just cut any and every possibility of a collision or an accident or anything at all. And I bring them out on the roads only after I have done that for 3 days on a barren stretch. So that's the third or the fourth day that they come out in traffic. And then comes the attitude part, because then all those thoughts are fine. You've mastered a few things. You know what to do with them. You know what to do with the brake and the clutch and how the car works. But what about the people? What about the sight of that huge truck or that huge bus or somebody, a pedestrian suddenly jumping in front of your car and all those things? Therein comes the attitude. So that starts when I finally throw them into the traffic. And that is where my teaching begins, how the other person is thinking on the road, how you should think, because in the NC, everybody is driving on the road, right? So obviously there's something that's working out there, even in this chaos. What is that thing that is working? That is what I teach them.
Wonderful. And, you're also an inclusive driving coach, like you mentioned.
Yes.
Can you talk about some of those experiences?
Yes, so there have been 3 of them so far. So Supriya, of course, is hearing impaired, and she came with her own set of inhibitions and a lot of questions. And honestly, for me also, it was the first time, and no other coach in taxi has really taken up this. And I decided to, because when I spoke to her, see, for me, it is imparting the skill to every woman, to whoever I can. Because fundamentally, it is equipping them with a skill, whether they are, differently able, disabled or not. So fundamentally, it is imparting that skill. Now with Supriya, of course, there was a little tweak that had to be done in the method of teaching, because there is a frequency that goes into her device, and she has to adjust to that, because there was a volume that I was also supposed to talk to her, and not many people knew about it, and I didn't know about it either. So I kept thinking about it, and I did not Google at all. It all came from within. I said, no, it's the empathy, it's the very strong desire that paves way, and your mind works. So I said, let me meet Supriya. I'm not going to do any homework at all. Let me just meet her, my few interactions with her, and I'll be able to gauge how to work, with her. And that's exactly what I did.
Absolutely, and, you're right. It's empathy. No textbook can teach you that.
No textbook can teach you that.
Yes. Needs from you. Yeah.
And I don't clutter my mind unnecessarily. If, of course, when there's knowledge required, I do make that effort. But when it comes to things like these, I do not rely on any kind of a manual. Okay, so And that is exactly what I did with Supriya. And then I started. And so every day there was something new. So she shared that she cannot make a sense of the sounds that come, from outside. And the cacophony and everything used to disturb her a lot. And she would get very flustered. So how training her mind to block all the sounds that came from outside. And when you were driving, there are these vibrations, which I figured out myself there and then, that how else can I teach her? Now she's not able to do this. So then I felt that I could feel a vibration in my thighs, which I did not feel for the 20 years that I've been driving, but it came to me there. I said, yeah, these are the vibrations that I can feel in my body. Why don't I use that to explain things to her? And that worked like magic. And then there were so many vibrations when you drive, which you don't realize that there are, and which I realized, and that is how I taught her. And then, of course, the attitude to how to handle people, and the honking is one thing which doesn't go very, she can't handle it. So there's a lot of honking in Indian roads, not much, thankfully, in Gurgaon, but yes, pretty much to disturb someone like Supriya. So how to shut her mind, how to just roll up the windows, and how the sound will come to her nonetheless. How to treat it, how to take it, and how to process that sound. That is what I taught her. I had to be very sensitive, because then I ended up actually telling her that how this hearing impairment you can use to your advantage. And let's also laugh about it, because here you are actually consciously playing deaf to all the sounds that are coming. So, it sounded a little low, but then the way I told her this, that we both ended up laughing about it. And I told her how to use this as her strength. I said, there is a hearing impairment. Of course, you cannot hear so many things. So let's play deaf for some time. And we did that day in and day out. So I used her disabilities to strong a word, her weakness to her advantage. And that kind of all worked out.
Absolutely, and we all have our challenges.
And like I said, a badass attitude. Yes. That is not a very good use, but yeah, you need that on the roads.
Yeah, the badass attitude is, I think, most important. No, and she spoke about it herself in some detail for the episode that I recorded with her. So that's how I connected with you, actually. So tell me about the others also, that, you were mentioning you had some other experiences as well.
Yes. So there was this 22-year-old girl who was born with a defect in the spine. So she cannot move her head freely, like the way we do with her neck, basically. So she would just stay still. And if she has to look in a particular direction, she had to actually move her eyes and the entire head with a lot of effort to be able to look in one direction. Now, for a person where you need to constantly look around, it is very difficult again. So this is a minor physical disability, not a very big one, but yes. But then the fear that came, her bones are fused. So she does not have a proper neck. Now, that is one that you can train. But then the fear that I will not be able to turn my head around was the greatest fear that she had and her parents had, because how can she drive off all the things? And then I told them that of all the people, these are the people who need to learn driving more than anybody else. And she's a young girl. She has been very independent. She has, fought a lot of odds because of her disability. And I said, you just hand over this girl to me and I am going to do it. Clueless about how I'm going to do it once again. So just learning on ground zero has been my mantra always. I met her, I spoke to her, and then I figured out that how the placing of the rear view mirrors should be. And so there had to be a strategic placing, different from what I was telling the other clients, and how she could just do it with the movement of her eyes and not having to move her neck around too much. And that worked. It took some time. It took an effort because, see, we know it's very easy for us to just turn our neck wherever we want to. And when you sit beside a person who is not able to do that, so first it's the empathy and understanding that takes you over. Then it paves the way in the teaching method. So not one method that I use, but constantly working with the person on a daily basis, improvising and working as per their needs. So in this case, it was the mirrors.
You're also working with not just women, right?
Yes. No, and there was a third that I forgot to tell you.
Yeah.
You asked me about. So there's this girl who is an anxiety patient, and she is a hardcore patient of anxiety. She's only 21, but she has been on therapy and medication, and driving was one thing that freaked her out totally. She was completely convinced in her head that this is one thing she's not going to do, because even as a co-passenger, she used to freak out. She would not let the other person drive, comfortably, because she would panic and she would freak out every 5 minutes. So for a person to even suggest driving to a person who is like this is not easy. But then her parents were very forthcoming. They said, no, we've heard, we think that you are the only person. They must have seen my profile or whatever. And they said they decided to talk to me about it. And I was like, okay, let me just meet your daughter, have a conversation with her, and then I will decide whether we go ahead with it or not. Because these are very sensitive decisions that you're taking, right? So I had a conversation with her, and I trained her, and there were such scary moments during the training when she would just leave her hands and legs, everything, and she would just sit like this in a moving car. She would just leave everything, and the car is still moving. I do not have controls. Yeah. So once that, it happened only once, and then again I worked on the way that I was going to teach her. I took her to barren stretches. And then I started talking to her. I started giving her homework. I started giving her brain exercises, which I had not known myself. I invented them there and then, about her writing things repeatedly, maybe whatever I had been telling her, but she was not able to absorb it because of her anxiety levels. So there were these brain exercises that I invented. I don't even know if they are there out there or not officially, but then they worked wonders. She did that. She listened to me of all the things, and it seemed that this is going to take forever, and it is not going to happen. And there was a lot of energy that I was giving her. So post every class, I would just come and collapse in my room, because all the positive energy that I gave her because she needed that. Yeah. So that's that. And those homeworks, those little brain exercises, and then repeating the same thing 100 times over, so that it sits in her brain. So yes, that was a tough call, and it all happened incident free. And she went on a holiday to Goa, and her parents, and she drove in Goa for their entire 5-day stay over there. So yeah. So it's not driving per se. See, the independence, or you basically, I'm helping these women overcome a fear. Driving in this case, but when you're able to deal with a particular fear, it kind of spills into other areas of your life. So the confidence that you get behind the wheel, in navigating, in maneuvering, that gives you a confidence which you can use. That, see, there's something new that you're adding to your personality, and you can use it in the other areas of your life. So it is not just restricted to driving. The freedom or the independence or the gain or the, working on your confidence, it helps you in so many ways. The entire attitude changes.
Absolutely, because if you feel you can do this, then you can do anything else as well.
Of course, yes.
Yeah. And I think sometimes, maybe like with this young girl you're talking about, I mean, of course, she must be getting her therapy and all that must be going on. But sometimes, yes, I guess you just need somebody to listen to you and pay attention. And it's, yes, not like a one-size-fits-all, kind of remedy for everybody.
Correct. Yeah. So you really can't have a manual with clients like these. You can't.
Yeah. So tell me, like I was asking you that, it's not only women, right? You also taught some boys, some men.
Yes. So there have been, so I have taught women of all ages from 18 to 70. My oldest clients being 70 years old, and my youngest being close to 18. So when boys, yes, because this is only about women, enabling women drivers. But then I had so many mothers coming to me for their young sons, for their 18-year-old sons, that, they are not very happy with these driving schools. And, there's a general notion that, the boys will pick up sooner, and, they don't need driving classes. But then maybe it's true for a larger number. But then there would always be a 10-20% who need this kind of help, and the gender has nothing to do with it. Yes, of course, the percentage is larger. They pick up easily. It comes very naturally to them. And those lessons are very helpful to a majority of them. But then there were mothers who had sons who weren't very confident in other areas of their life. And that kind of spilled on to driving lessons also. And they did send them to the other driving schools to learn, but it did not happen. And that's when, see, a woman brings a lot many things to the table that a man cannot, right? Be it the nurturer thing, be it the way they deal. And then I'm a mother myself. So of course that motherly thing, and I'm like an alternate mother to all my clients, especially the young girls and the boy in this case. So when she's a friend and she reached out to me, she said, I would really, and I had already trained her daughter, and her daughter is driving now. She said, there have been 3 failed attempts, and I think my son needs guidance like the kind of guidance that you give. So I was like a little this thing that I haven't really ventured into this. I am not, but then my heart went out for her, and I said, no, let me just try this also. And the best part was that, generally boys would be a little reluctant to be taught, especially driving lessons, though they've had women teachers in their school all their life. But then when it comes to driving, even these young boys, they have it in their heads, okay, fine, a woman teaching me. I mean, driving of all the things. So, they do come up with those kind of reactions. And this boy did not, because he genuinely wanted to learn driving, and he couldn't forgive himself. He had reached that stage that, why is it that I'm not able to do it? And yes, he did it in 5 days flat. And that boy thing did come back. The only thing was that the guidance was not correct.
Yeah, that's really great. I mean, happy ending.
Happy ending. And yes, and I really don't mind teaching these young boys and making more than the boys, the lives of the mothers easy.
Yeah, absolutely. And what about your own daughters? Do they drive? Have they learned from you?
My daughters, they joined these driving schools when I had not started this. And I always thought that I am sometimes it did go into my head, being a skillful driver, I would become impatient and just try to maneuver and navigate traffic unnecessarily, even when it's not required. So I thought I'll always be a very bad teacher to my own daughters, because I would become very impatient, and I would tell them ki, "Arey, nikal to rahi hai, nikal kyun nahi rahi ho?" So that's not how you teach, right? There's I thought that I will be like that. So, but then they went to these driving schools and nothing worked. So all of those efforts were in vain. And but then when I started this and I trained them, so yes, both of them are driving. Yeah.
Actually, a lot of people. Yeah, tell me.
No. Sorry, I cut you short. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I was just saying there are a lot of people who go to driving schools and then, they don't actually start driving after that. So tell me, what is your...
Yeah. I'd let you finish that. Yes.
Yeah. So I'm thinking, what is your, reaction to something like this? And what are the tips, let's say, that, for if women want to drive, should they drive in their own car? Should they, get an instructor and learn in the driving school's car, or go for manual or automatic? What are the things that you can recommend?
Yes. So coming to driving schools, the statistics, and those are facts. 70% of women come from these failures from these driving schools, failed driving attempts at these schools. Now, what doesn't work in these driving schools mostly is that they have dual controls. Okay. So more than half the time, it's the trainer who is managing the vehicle, avoiding collisions, braking when required, using the clutch when required. And the trainee feels that it is she who has been doing this all the while. So when the lessons finish and they get over, the woman feels that she's very happy after every class, because she feels that she has been driving all through. And when she leaves the classes, or those classes end, she is at sea, because when she sits in her own car, firstly the car changes. Okay, they've been trained on one car and she's driving another. And then suddenly she is so confused about what to do with the brake, what to do with the clutch. And it is almost zero what they learned from these schools. Because obviously they are not putting in the effort. They are finishing the classes, and they do classes in barely for 40 minutes or 50 minutes. What will you learn on the roads in 40 and 50 minutes? One is the time. Second is they do not invest so much. Third, they have the controls in their not their hands, in their legs. So they are doing more than half the work. So which is why it's a failure. When the client comes to me, I train them on their own car. The reason being that once you train on a car that you are eventually going to drive, so there is no transition that is required immediately, right? So at least for 6 months, drive that car, gain that confidence, get the technicalities right, and then only think of changing the car. So it only makes more sense to train on the car that they are going to drive. So when I leave them, it's the same dabba that they're driving, right? So there is no change there. And when they are doing everything from A to Z themselves, they are using their judgment, their, how alert they have to be, their own muscles, their own everything. When you do from A to Z, the success will be guaranteed, right? Anything for that matter. Why just driving? So you're doing it under guidance, you're doing it under a set of instructions, but I am not doing anything for you, right? So my role is to drive only for the first 3 days. That is when we go to barren stretches. I pick and drop them in their car. 4th day, they have to take it themselves. And that is why it is such an effective way of teaching. So yes, there the instructions and the teaching methodology comes in that has to be very, very clear. And that it is. And that is why I guarantee success.
Yeah.
And they realize that on the first day. Yeah.
Yeah. So the first day itself, they know that they can do it. First day with you.
Oh, yes. Yeah. You can just reach out to any one of them on Facebook. They're all there almost. And you can just talk to them and ask them this actually.
Right.
It's all out there in public domain.
And what about manual, automatic? What should you learn on?
Okay, so coming to a manual transmission or an automatic, now this choice lies entirely with the client. Now the world is moving to automatic cars. Now when they are buying new cars, they are mostly buying automatic cars. Nobody is buying manual cars. Who are those who are buying manual cars? Are mostly people who either they have a budget constraint or the ones who are very passionate about driving, like in my case. I will never drive an automatic car. I will always drive all my life a manual car because just the feel of changing the gears and, that feeling of drive that comes only when you're changing gears constantly. And like you've seen in movies, it goes like dark, and then, you've seen those action sequences, right?
Yeah, of course.
So that gives you a high, gives you a kick. And I enjoy that. And there's a lot of application that goes there. But then... So these are the questions that I ask my clients, and they ask me eventually that whether they should learn on a manual car. So if you learn on a manual car, the advantage is that you'll be able to drive any car post that. So the transitioning from a manual car to an automatic is a breeze if you've already driven a manual car. However, if you learn only on an automatic car, you'll never be able to drive a manual car without learning. So that's how it goes. So this is entirely need-based. There are some who say that, no, I'm not getting into this. I'm just learning on an automatic car. Fine. Then they are the ones. And then there are others who are very particular about learning on a manual car. And then they also come to me to help them transition from a manual to an automatic car. So these are very customized courses also. So there are women who come to me for just the transitioning from a small car to a big car. So usually households, they have a smaller car for the lady in the house and a bigger SUV for the man in the house. And that seems to be a norm. And I'm like, quite taken aback by this, that why? And women seem to be very happy about it. That, no, I drive. And then they have never even touched their husband's car. They have just been driving their own car and they're very comfortable. So then they feel that, no, I want to drive a bigger car. And that's when they come to me. So they already know driving. They are just helping. I just help them, with the change. So they may do it in 2 days, 3 days or whatever. So answering a question about manual and automatic is this. Okay. But in India, manual cars are still... a majority of them, I think, have a manual car as compared to an automatic car. So right. I would always say that why keep a handicap? Learn on a manual car and then you're good for everything. Yeah, unless you're hell-bent that, no, I don't want to complicate my life that much. And I tell them it's not a complication. You come to me, I'll teach you on an automatic, I'll teach you on a manual. Both are going to be a breeze. So ultimately, the choice lies with the client. Yeah,
absolutely. What cars do you enjoy driving?
I like raw, rustic SUVs. I do not like sedans. I do not like sophisticated cars. I don't like cars that are driven like that you can drive like makhan. Though I have driven every car by virtue of what I'm doing. So be it the high-end cars and be it the smallest of cars and all of the cars thrown in between, I still prefer the SUVs, the ones that are used in rural areas. So Mahindra cars are my favorite. So be it a Scorpio or an XUV 700, these are the kind of cars that I like. Angry looking cars, beasts is what I like. Yeah.
Tell me some of the drives that you've taken that, you cherish.
The
Long
drives that I have
drives.
taken.
Yeah, like if you're traveling somewhere in the hills or like tough rides or, just something that you and just enjoyed it, put on the music and you've gone and you think about that time and it just gives you joy.
Put me anywhere with the music on, be it the highway, be it the hills, be it the plains, be it the chaotic traffic, Ganda city traffic, anywhere. And I am good. So I haven't been to a special drive, but yes, I drove from Dehradun to Delhi. That has been the only this thing because, now that I've started doing this, that people are convinced about my ability, because earlier, there would be problems at home that I was not even given a car to be able to drive to another city. So you're not allowed to do that because it's like, no, I mean, what nonsense are you talking? So women are often looked upon like that, and which was the case with me also. And they were like, no way, not letting that happen. And just to maintain peace, you don't do so many things. And but now everyone is pretty much convinced about me. So it takes a lot for a woman to convince the people around her, even those who love her and value her, that she can do it. Let her. So
all in the name of protection.
All in the name of protection. Yes, absolutely. No, and then there are husbands who tell their wives. So don't get me really started on this, because men have different ways of playing on the minds of women. When it comes to equipping them with a skill, and they're like, "Tum to meri rani ho. I have 2 drivers for you. I have 2 cars for you. And why do you need to even learn driving?" So I'm like, why deny a woman a life essential skill? You want to pamper her, take her out shopping, take her out on a holiday, do whatever she loves doing, but denying her a very basic skill. And you may just hire a posse of drivers for her, but you're doing more harm to her. And somewhere you're killing that ability in her and that desire to pucho hi mat. That is, you don't need to. And they are told upfront, and I'm talking about educated urban men. I haven't even gone down there. I'm not even talking about men. And this is like, this is patriarchy and toxic patriarchy. It's just done in a very subtle way, and a lot of times sugar-coated, and which women are not able to see through. But I tell them, go and have a time of your life, but do not deny yourself these skills.
And I guess women, as it is, you lack a little confidence, to try something.
Oh, yes. Yeah. And nobody around you is really working on that confidence. They're basically eating into it, on the contrary. So, yeah. And then there are women who, men were like, you don't know how to drive, and I'm the only one who's driving in the house. There is so much to be done. And kya fayda tumhara? You've been to 2 driving schools already. And how much more money do you want to waste, and time and energy? Forget it. I think it's only me who's doing it. Go bloody hire a cab. And these are the kind of tones and the language that you use, and the women come and share with me. So how unsettling and upsetting it must be for the woman. And it's a day in and a day out thing. It's not like once and it's done and dusted. So you're living with it. So it's very underrated. The liberation and the empowerment that comes with driving is highly underrated.
Yeah, and I guess it eats away at you, gradually.
Yep.
Yeah,
it does.
So tell me one thing, like, you also, like I said, you're like a driving coach and a life coach rolled into one. That's a process. And so, you've been somebody who stayed at home and then you ventured out, and, now you have something new that you're doing. What do you say? What can you say for women who are still, at home looking after their family and wondering if they can, do something else?
Oh my God. I would, firstly, my hashtag is Utho or Niklo. It is self-explanatory. And when said with the right tone, it is as simple as Utho or Niklo. So all the deliberations, all the overthinking that we do about everything that we want to do, that's how we are made, I guess. We have to break that mold of overthinking and sometimes taking a plunge. Of course, I mean, you have to identify the risks beforehand. You don't take a mad plunge into anything, a very informed one. But holding yourself back because of certain people in your house, because of certain conditioning, your own conditioning that has been there and you don't realize it, they have to come out of this. And it is a quick decision. Like I said, no deliberation required. So sometimes it's good to be impulsive. You are at an age where you are like flummoxed. You are so perplexed about so many things in life. Then take that call which has been bothering you. Right? Had se had kya hoga? Nothing will come out of it. You may end up a failure. But then, the number of, the way it's going to pave way for you, the kind of doors it opens, that will come to you only when you take that first step. It could be anything. So basically working on your well-being, which I see women coming even from privileged backgrounds not doing. So that, I mean, just take the plunge. And second, and what was the question? Am I digressing? Can you repeat that again?
No, I'm just saying that exactly what you said, that, what's stopping them, or if they themselves feel underconfident and they want to, they can have a second innings, basically.
Reach out to help, talk to people, reach out for help, talk to people. Never think twice before reaching out for help. There is no embarrassment. There is no courage either that is required. And there would be people. I mean, today I am fulfilling so many needs. So somewhere it was a need in the community, which probably, that I came into the picture, or Vandana Suri came into the picture. So there are things that are happening. There are people who can help you. The only thing is that please open up. Please put it out there without thinking twice about it. Any kind of conditioning, any kind of embarrassment, there's no such thing. All of us are going through various kinds of shit in our own. Everybody is going through it. Put it out in the open. Don't be secretive about it. Don't mull over it. And, just keep building it up. Yeah. And then it's a vicious circle. Then those negative emotions, then that feeling of being, that defeatist feeling and all of that, it will start closing on in you.
Yeah. And if I may add to that, like in your case, probably you have a skill that you're not even aware of.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And being impulsive and taking that plunge helped me discover. I mean, I always thought it was like in thin air, that fine, I'm good at driving, that's it. And look where it has led me. So sometimes, please do not overthink. And sometimes, I think most of the times we're doing just that. And I was the one who used to overthink and overanalyze. And so the feeling of worthlessness also is very important. I feel for everybody that everybody should reach that stage where they feel completely lost, completely defeated, and worthless to the core. Sometimes I feel, because in my case, that is what worked. And that gives you the courage. If you're all the time, in a very safe haven, provided for everything. I come from a privileged background. I'm also provided for everything. But then recognizing that little itch in me and not letting the other luxuries of life, let me rest with it and let it give a go by, because what is it that I was looking for? I'm provided for every material thing that one can possibly ask for. But that's not the idea at all.
Yeah, sometimes I guess it's not a bad idea what you're suggesting, to emotionally hit rock bottom. Yes. And then you pull yourself and you
pull yourself. Yes. Yes. Provided it doesn't do irreparable damage, you have to have that courage. And all of us have it. It's just that we don't go out.
Acknowledge it, no?
Acknowledge it and then reach out to people. Mm-hmm. Out of 10, you will find 3 at least. But then you have to reach. Like, I'm a very people's person. Like, I would just interact with strangers on the airport or at the railway station. And there is so much I pick from there. Why do you have to hold yourself back? So women just need to open up. Anything holding them back, especially if it is in the form of a man, please.
Especially then.
Yes, especially then. And they cave in. Everybody caves in. You just have to take a call and put your foot down and stand, with it. That's the only thing you need. In some cases, it may take a month. In some cases, it may take years. Like in my case, it took years and years. So it depends on how quickly you're able to work on it. But just don't give up.
Yeah, stand by what you like you're saying.
Utho or niklo is just, oh yes, it says everything.
Yeah. Yeah, but Seema, it's been so great talking to you. I think we can just go on and on. And
I know, I know. I never thought it will
yeah,
go so long, but I'm really enjoying this.
same here. But
And the
finally,
fact that it's not an interview, we're just two women
yeah.
talking.
Exactly. So, just one final question. So, you seem to have found your flow in this, but is there anything that, you have a goal or you have any aspiration that I must achieve this, or anything that, in your head, if you visualize what you would want to do in the future?
Oh, yes. Coming to this driving, I want to reach out to the underprivileged women because there are many girl child homes. There are many orphanages, and I have been in talks with them who want to impart this skill to young girls or to the underprivileged women as an employment opportunity. Now, the one thing holding me back is the lack of funds and the CSR things. Those are the kind of things that I need to reach out to various organizations for that. So that is in the pipeline. So these girls are usually school dropouts and they don't continue their education in these orphanages. And if you go to them and you ask them for a skill, for instance, would you want to work as a housework or would you want to take driving? So obviously the 18-year-old will jump at the idea of taking driving. And I also feel it's a critical need in the community, because when women when they get into the mobility business and the more women there are on the roads, the safer the ecosystem will be, right? So when these women, they find and they can find jobs as delivery, the delivery person, or as a chauffeur, or simply driving women around, women coming at odd hours at the airport. And we all know that North India is notorious for the reputation that it has. So we can have these pickups. We can always employ these women to ferry children to school and to their extra classes, especially in the case of working parents. So, they are very, they feel a kind of assurance when there is a woman carrying their child to an extra class with the kind of child abuse and everything. So there are many sectors that can be worked upon in this. Right now, I'm only handling privileged women, but I hope to branch out into this, and I eventually will. The only thing is that there's a lot that needs to be worked in this, in this regard, and that I will start.
Yeah, that's a great vision.
Yeah. So, it's like an alternate mother carrying your children to school, basically.
Yeah,
absolutely. So why these young girls, their mothers are so happy with me that they don't have to go and sit with them or accompany their daughter for these driving lessons. They just send their daughters to me.
No, and what you mentioned even about coming back late at night, I mean,
yes.
I would any day be more comfortable with a woman driver.
Of course.
Because you're all the time sharing your location with somebody or picking up the phone to call somebody so that the guy knows that, you're talking to someone, alone.
And there's no infrastructure to train them. That's how I come into the picture. So even these girl child homes, they would say that we would not like a man to come and train these young girls.
Exactly, that too, yeah.
And there are no women coaches. There's no dearth of women coaches. There are no women coaches. So a lot of credit I will give to Vandana for coming up with this, and then for me to help me find a purpose in life. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
it's a great purpose. Yeah. Thank you, Seema. It's been so wonderful, honestly.
Same here, Anuradha. Yeah. Oh, it's been therapeutic. I love talking to you.
Same here. I've totally enjoyed it.